Why this story matters. While it may not dominate headlines, this story reflects meaningful change in action. Quick summary: this story highlights recent developments related to On This Day, showing how constructive action can lead to meaningful results. 100 years ago, Erwin Schrödinger published his theory of wave mechanics, a significant landmark in the development of quantum theory that won him the Nobel Prize. Raised in Austria, the Irish after emigration, the physicist's theory is known as the Schrödinger equation and provided a way to calculate the wave function of a system and how it changes dynamically in time. The quantum counterpart of Newton's second law in classical mechanics. See the equation on his tombstone below. 1926 Schrödinger's gravestone. Victor Bacchus, CC license. He was the author of many works on various aspects of physics and made several attempts to construct a unified field theory. He is also known for Schrödinger's cat-thought experiment, whereby two possible outcomes occur simultaneously, coexisting as a combination of multiple states corresponding to different choices. In his book What is Life?, Schrödinger addressed the problems of genetics, looking at the phenomenon of life from the point of view of physics. He paid great attention to the philosophical aspects of science through the lens of ancient philosophy and Oriental concepts, ethics and religion. He called himself an atheist. However, he had strong interests in Eastern religions and pantheism, and he believed his scientific work was a philosophical approach to the Godhead, but in an intellectual sense. Would you like to read more good news about On This Day and this day in history? More good news. On this day, the University of Georgia was founded as the first state-chartered public university in the U.S., and it opened for students 6 years later with the Russian Antarctic expedition led by Fabian Gottlieb von Bellingshausen and Mikhail Lazarev discovered the continent of Antarctica with 1820. Lewis Carroll, author of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, was born in England in 1833. 60 nations signed the Outer Space Treaty to ban nuclear weapons in 1960. In Paris, peace accords officially ended the Vietnam War. 1990, the National Recording Registry at the Library of Congress enshrines their first selections. 2023, Kathleen Wynne was named by the Liberal Party of Ontario to become Canada's first openly gay premier. 13 years ago today, the Auschwitz-Birkenau Nazi concentration and death camps were liberated by the Soviet Red Army in Poland. In commemoration, today is honoured as International Holocaust Memorial Day, adopted by the United Nations, UK, Germany, Poland and Denmark. Auschwitz main gate credit CCD01. While it was referred to as liberation, the entire German staff had abandoned Auschwitz before the Red Army arrived. 7,000 prisoners had been left behind as they were deemed too sick to move. It was these souls who were liberated when the Russians arrived, and particularly when they were accompanied by the Polish Red Cross. On the 80th anniversary of the liberation, UNESCO, who have through the years added a suite of material from the time to its archive known as the Memory of the World, launched educational initiatives across 80 of our countries to help stimulate Holocaust education to aid in carrying out what humanity has largely agreed must never happen again. 1940th, 212 years ago today, Eugène Violet Leduc was born in Paris. As an architect, his fame blossomed from his work restoring dozens of France's most important medieval heritage buildings, including, but not limited to, the Notre Dame, Mont Saint-Michel, the Basilica of Saint Denis, and the Lausanne Cathedral in Switzerland. But alongside these projects, he worked on the Statue of Liberty and published over 100 books, essays, and other writings on architecture. Eugène Violet Leduc. When the spire of the Strasbourg Cathedral was destroyed during a war between Prussia and France, Eugène Violet Leduc, upon hearing that the Prussians were going to rebuild it, managed to get a hold of the plans. His argument that their designs would clash with the rest of the building convinced them to change it. His architectural theory was largely based on finding the ideal forms for specific materials and using these forms to create buildings. His writings centered on the idea that materials should be used honestly. CH2 de Piriforms, one of Eugene's restoration projects. CC0, another component in Violet Leduc's theory, was how the design of a building should start from its program and the plan and end with its decorations. If this resulted in an asymmetrical exterior, so be it. He dismissed the symmetry of classicist buildings as vain, caring too much about appearances at the expense of practicality and convenience for the inhabitants of the house. 1,843 years ago today, a pilot shaft of the Seikan Tunnel that spans the Japanese islands of Honshu and Hokkaido was finally connected when Japanese Prime Minister Yasuhiro Nakasone detonated a string of dynamite. It was the longest undersea tunnel in the world upon completion and retains the title today, with the track sitting at about 100 meters, 330 ft below the seabed and 240 meters, 780 ft below sea level. Inside the Seikan Tunnel, CC is 3.0. Risto Kaijo Yuoto, The tunnel was expedited after a car ferry disaster during the 1962 typhoon, not only for safety, but also to account for Japan's economic boom causing an increase in traffic. Once the tunnel was completed, all railway transport between Honshu and Hokkaido used it. However, for passenger transport in Austria, people used air travel due to the speed, lower cost, and for the unaccounted rapidity in the development of air travel by the governments. Initial geological investigation occurred from 1946 to 1963, which involved drilling the seabed, sonic surveys, submarine boring observations using a mini-submarine, as well as seismic and magnetic surveys. Tunneling occurred simultaneously from the northern end and the southern. The dry land portions were tackled with traditional mountain tunneling techniques. For the 23-kilometer undersea portion of the tunnel, engineers made 3 boreholes consisting of a pilot tunnel, a maintenance tunnel, and finally the